Real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to Face the Nation. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. This evening, I'm privileged to be joined by Mr. Godber Tumushabe. He is a lawyer, a policy analyst, and also a social entrepreneur. You're most welcome, sir, and it's a privilege to have you face the nation.
I'm very delighted to join you, Edgar. My great pleasure, and greetings to our viewers.
Thank you so much. We shall start off. What do you think in your regard, having seen this country from where it has come from, even up to today, what do you think is Uganda's biggest problem?
I think I would start with Uganda's biggest opportunity.
Okay.
Yeah, Uganda is, we are a blessed country. We are a country that is naturally endowed. We are a country that has very humble and polite and hospitable people. In terms of resource endowment, I always, the best example I use is to say that this country is the only place I have been to in the world, and I can assure you I have been in several countries. But this is the only country in the world where you can have 2 bumper harvests in a year without applying irrigation, without applying fertilizers, without applying chemicals. So everything just happens and grows naturally. And then, of course, you have this dynamic young population that has grown up over the years, that this is an opportunity that we have. But when you look at it in terms of what is the problem, I think that ours is a leadership problem. Yeah, because normally many people want to look at the different challenges that we have. Oh, so we have poor infrastructure. Others even go ahead and say we are poor, which I think I don't agree with, because you can't be endowed the way we are endowed as a country and then you say we are poor. It means that it is only your minds that are poor. Others will tell you, oh, the problem is climate because of climate change. But actually, if you understand how society is transformed, you only realize that our only problem is the leadership problem.
What do you mean by leadership?
Yes, so leadership. Let me see if I can. I would use Colin Powell's definition of leadership to basically explain what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
So Colin Powell, was one of his writings, basically says a leader is one who makes possible what the science of management says is impossible. So leaders solve problems, whether it's at the family level. If you are the head of the household and you are the leader, you are supposed to fix the problems in the family. If it is in the community, you are supposed to fix the problems in the community. If you are at the national level, you are a president, you are supposed to be fixing problems. What that means is that you are not just being like Mr. Fixer or Miss Fixer. You are able to mobilize the people, organize them, and be able to give them the kind of imagination that things are possible.
Haven't our leaders done that?
No. Our leaders are they are too basic. Lots of things are too tactical. I'll give you an example. So when you I think the best example I can use is when President Museveni delivers the State of the Nation address. A State of the Nation address is supposed to be an inspirational speech of where, one, what you've been able to accomplish in a year, but also how the future looks like. Now you'll see President Museveni can take you into a lot of history.
Yeah, where you've come from.
Where you've come from. Recently he has started even going as far back as the time of the Watembuzi. And he can spend the next 1 hour talking about the history. And then when he talks about the present and the future, what is he talking about? He's talking about his programs of Bonabaga Gawale, PDM, Emioga. Those are very, very tactical things. Because there is no way a young person who can think of Emioga and imagine that he can build a rocket, or that he can create the best innovation that can solve our traffic challenges, or that can solve some agricultural problem out there. So there is that failure of leaders to help us imagine.
So let's talk about the person of Museveni. Do you think he has failed you to imagine? And when you look at where he has brought the country from, as he claims, from 1986 up to today, isn't there something we can say? He has lifted a country in various aspects, starting for the health-wise, mortality rate, we can see some tangible successes.
One is that I don't want to take away his credit, but you see the things that people cite, they are the normal things.
He cites them too.
Yes. So in other words, if you cite infant mortality rates, you look across countries on this continent and across the world. Every country has had infant mortality rates go down. He'll tell you about vaccination. Vaccination is a global program where institutions like World Health Organization and UNICEF and others have invested in vaccination. So, in other words, the country must be in a deep trouble, like maybe South Sudan or DRC, who have lots of conflict, that they failed to take advantage of these initiatives to be able to increase vaccination. So, in other words, you can claim credit for all these things, and that's perfectly fine. But that can also be done by every other country. So the leaders are supposed to step on this pedestal and say, beyond this is how Uganda is moving into the future. In other words, I have been able to create conditions for vaccination to take place. So we have controlled the 7 killer diseases, but we're also producing the best scientists and the best economists.
Isn't that a little bit too much to request
what is
from Mr. Museveni?
Because
he says this Uganda is an island of peace in a region that is tumultuous and has been troubled by a lot of insecurity.
That's the other misconception, by the way, that has been perpetuated. It's a narrative that has been perpetuated that because you see, when we use peace, when we talk of peace, sometimes it's like you don't understand the true meaning of peace. In policy, you want to look at certain things. One is that you look at security. Then you look at stability. Security and stability create conditions for peace. What Museveni and his group have been able to do is to deliver security and stability, and for that they have to be congratulated. But peace is a condition. Peace is not a product like security. No, peace is a condition. You can have security and stability, but you as an individual, you are in a very, very unstable environment. So peace is a condition about your economic security. It's a condition about your job security. It's a condition about your social security. It's a condition about your environmental security. That's what we call peace. So the fact that especially the current regime has described the absence of guns or the absence of war as peace is a total misconception. Because you see, you can't say you have peace and you are President Museveni, and when you are traveling across the country, it's like you are going to a front line. In other words, you are basically you are moving with the soldiers and in convoys and all the and aircraft guns and everything, and you are just walking, you are just traveling inside your country, and then you say you have peace. So what kind of peace is that? You have all these generals who travel around town, and they have a lead security car, they have a rear security car, all these escorts armed. It's like everybody, it's like they have stolen someone's property there, some guy is about to shoot them. So I think people need to understand we are putting our imagination of what is peace so low, and therefore we think we are okay.
So,
yeah.
Okay, do you think Museveni is loved in this country, especially as we talk about active politics? Is he loved by his people? Do they vote him?
I don't know who his people are, but I think
Ugandans. Because they are the people he leads. His
no,
people.
I think Museveni was loved. I don't think that love is still there. I'm one of those people who loved Museveni. Me, I still love him because I wish him well. But there are people who have been completely, should I say, harassed. Because there are people who have lost children because of regime harassment. There are people whose children have been maimed. Yeah, there are kids who have been kidnapped and they are missing. There are people who have spent years in jail because they have disagreed with the regime. So should those people have
with all those injustices, this gentleman keeps winning after 5 years.
You see, there is a difference, Edgar. There is a difference between winning and being a declared winner. So in other words, in our current system, if Museveni is contesting, one is that he has to be declared winner. That's the way the system is structured. But you also have a president who campaigns for 5 years. And then the people who claim to campaign against him, they only campaign for about 3 or 4 months. So you can't campaign for 5 years when you are tying all your opponents. They are locked up, they are being disrupted by police and security and other security people. And then after 5 years, you allow them to come in for 3 months and say, I have won you.
So why,
that's the biggest mischief.
Why would you go cast your vote, Mr. Tumushabe?
What are the other options? Because you see, once the population basically withdraws from the electoral process, then you are opening it for other alternatives, including violence, which is not desirable. So in other words, you have to keep on hoping that the population can be mobilized and they can basically disengage the regime through an electoral process. You have to keep on hoping and probably working for it, because the alternatives are not desirable for us as a people, but also for our country. Our country has fought for too long.
Okay.
We've been fighting each other for as long as we have lived 62 years of independence. I've said time and again, we are a very, very strange people, by the way. Ugandans were a strange people.
How strange?
Because we are the only people who celebrate killing each other. So in other words, when you go to Tarehe Sita, the day they say this is Ahmed Day, you are going to be giving medals to people who were fighting insurgencies in this country. Insurgencies were by Ugandans. So basically, you are rewarding one group for killing another group.
Yeah,
And you think that is serious?
One freedom fighter is actually another one's matter. You know.
No. You say there is freedom fighting.
They call that liberation.
No, you say liberating from what? We are basically a country that have had disagreements, and we ended up shooting at each other, and then we celebrate that situation. We should be asking ourselves, why should we be shooting at each other? If there is any major contribution that President Museveni can make now in his evening of his regime, it would be to pull all these Ugandans from across the political and other spectrums and bring them together and say, let's talk about the future. Because
nobody wants to meet Mr. Museveni. Even today, if Mr. Godber, you met Mr. Museveni, you hear some assertions like you've eaten, you've been compromised. It feels like when you affiliate with government.
That's what I'm saying. There's a failure of leadership. Because you see, for me as Godber, I can meet with President Museveni, basically to put together my agenda and say, this is what I think I need, the country needs. Now, anybody can go and say, Godber has taken money from Museveni. If I have not taken it, why should I be
But
there?
Even if you have not, it's just that you don't have to meet him. Have you realized that politics of antagonism?
No,
that when Senator Churchill meets President Museveni on an official function, one of his, in fact, his father and one of the leaders in national platform says, please, I want you to even apologize to Ugandans. It is seen as demonic to affiliate with the state.
No, you see, you are also now beginning to change the narrative. You are saying Museveni is the state. Museveni is not the state. First of all, Museveni is an ordinary Ugandan like you and me. He's another Ugandan. We need to start from
40 years in an office.
It doesn't matter.
You cease to be an individual.
No,
you are a system.
I am just explaining it to you that first and foremost, Museveni is an individual citizen like you and me. So when I'm thinking of engaging with him, I have to start from there. Then secondly, he is my president. So I say, oh, this is my president, so I'm engaging with him as a president. Yeah? And so it is in those two perspectives that I will engage with him. Now, if I went and met with him and someone said, Godber took money from the president and I didn't take it, I don't have to lose sleep over it. The problem with Ugandans, I think many of my colleagues I meet and say, it's like, if the guys say, if someone says, you've taken Museveni's money, then I have to go and start running around and defending myself. Me, I would not even defend myself, because if I have not taken his money, because in any case I would not take it, because I believe that...
There are even claims that you took money from Mr. Museveni.
No, if I took, then people should go and they should go to court.
Did you take money?
Look, me, I first of all take it for what? To do what? I would take some money from Museveni, because I think that in a practical sense, I consider Museveni to be a very rich person, because we have employed him for 40 years now. We have employed this guy for 40 years. Ugandan taxpayers have paid him a salary, looked after him and his family for 40 years. You think that's a joke?
No.
For me, I have been here also for 40 years like him, because he phoned me when I was coming from, when I had just completed S4. And I studied, I finished, and went and started hustling and working. And for 40 years or more, I have been looking after my family and myself. So when you say Museveni is a rich man, he has this, so Museveni should give me money. Which one? You know what I did?
Okay.
I think Ugandans, we need to be really more serious, because Museveni will only be giving me money which I have given to government of Uganda.
So it's your money?
It's my money. So I don't need it, because I did it for what? I can feed my family, I can pay school fees for my children, I can look after my relatives. So I get money from him to do what?
As we're gearing up to the electoral cycle that he's already on, we have Dr. Kizza Besigye incarcerated in prison. What's your comment on that?
You see, Museveni has done very wonderful things for this country, security and stability being one of them. The fact that he has been able to organize a fighting force that has created some kind of security and stability has been important in terms of certain things happening. But when you look at when his record, when history is written, when the history of Uganda is written, covering Museveni's regime, there are about two important things that are going to really be probably will need to be emphasized. That one, that like he said, he has really demonstrated his capacity as a master of violence. Because you remember he said it. That
Yes, he said
for
he's
him
the
a
master of violence. Yes.
If
That's what you want, he's a master of violence.
So he has really built a violence machinery that he has unleashed on Ugandans time and again. And in my in a paper I wrote recently with one of the colleagues, we have actually projected that that violence is going to escalate into what we describe as the warrior mad king scenario.
What's that?
The warrior mad king scenario is like what you saw in Kawempe. That's the scenario where there is absolute madness. Violence is unleashed with absolute madness. So in other words, the king is naked. So the king can unleash all instruments of violence on the population. Our projection is that that's where we're heading. So the kidnapping of Besigye from Nairobi and the Kawempe elections are clear indicators that actually our projection of the trajectory of violence is likely to be true. Besigye has been, I think, Besigye is a symbol of resistance in this country. You can love him, you can like him, but I think he's a symbol of resistance in this country. He was one of the first NRM leaders to point Uganda and say there is a problem.
Yes.
Many of the people, especially the NRM people, did not heed the problem. And he has been consistent in fighting for liberating the country from the NRM capture, because the Ugandan state is under the capture of this junta called NRM. So the institutions of state that are supposed to work for you and me or work for us as citizens, they are all captured by Museveni and his group. They work for them. So you see the army, it works for Museveni first before it works for Ugandans. The police, the intelligence, and everybody else. So that's one area where I think when the history of this country is written, Museveni will be given a very, very bad indictment on the use of violence that he has unleashed on Ugandans, including people like Besigye. The second one is more of the software, where these 40 years of NRM have lowered the imagination of Ugandans of what is possible. Yeah, so everybody keeps on lowering the threshold of even so you find people, if you go and buy a 50 by 100 plot of land, you consider yourself successful.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are very, I can call you wealthy right away.
Exactly. That's the level of how the threshold of the threshold levels of our imagination have been brought so low, even below the lowest common denominator.
How is that bad to a country in the long run? It's
bad because you see the society is transformed by big ideas. They are dreamers. You have people, especially young people like you.
Yes.
You are a government that is responsible creates an environment where people dream. You begin to see big things possible.
Yes.
Yeah. So in other words, you are finishing university. You are getting out of university. You are seeing big ideas. You are seeing a bigger future, and it's the environment. The environment is created to say you can win the future.
Yes.
So in other words, you are more focused on building big things, because big things are the ones which create jobs.
Yes.
Big things create opportunities. When you, at this moment, when you leave university and you land on a small job, normally paying some little money, you are looking for, when do I get some 20, 30 million to buy a plot of land?
Exactly.
And when you do it, you go and buy 30 million, you buy a plot of land, you have buried it there, and this plot you're going to develop it for the next 3 years. Wow. So basically, you've locked up 30 million in a plot of land, when actually 30 million could have been invested in starting up a small craft business or some small kiosk that is then able to grow the money. But then you look around and say, the tax environment is very unattractive, the market is not there, people are poor. If you say, if I keep this money to trade, I am going to eat it. You just go and bury it in a piece of land.
Exactly.
So that's what I call lowering the imagination of people. And I'll take it back to Museveni's speeches. Museveni, I think, he tells a lot of stories, you know, these fireplace conversations.
Yes.
You know, when you...
Grandfather,
exactly. I don't think that
Exactly.
I don't think that a State of the Nation address should be a fireplace conversation or a New Year's speech that you go and start talking about very strange things. Even this point that he makes, this narrative of Bazukuru, and really, I get amazed by you guys. You find guys who have gone to university and some old man is saying you are Bazukuru, as if you don't know who's your grandfather, you don't know who's your father. I mean, how does you becoming a president make you my
That's
grandfather?
patronage you want to
It's absolute patronage, and it's very demeaning, and it's very disempowering. Because normally when we use that language, for us who are in certain positions of power, and it doesn't matter, you don't even have to be a president. You can run an organization like the one I run. When you create those kinds of narratives using those kinds of languages, you are trying to change the power relations. So in other words, instead of you looking at Museveni as your president, you are looking at him as judge.
Yes.
Now, in our tradition, there is a way we deal with the judges. There is a way we deal with your father. Incidentally, you'll find that the way you deal with your father is not the way you deal with your judge.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, Museveni knows, by the way. It's only you guys.
So it's not by design.
No, it's by design. He knows what
Wow.
he's trying to achieve. Basically, all of you have to say, this is my grandfather, he will solve my problems. In other words,
Exactly.
you don't have to worry a lot. I am solving your problems.
What's your comment on the son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba? I've seen you talk about him on X sometimes, but what do you think about this gentleman who wields a lot of power right now, and he's CDF and also presidential advisor?
Incidentally, I don't think that Muhoozi wield a lot of power.
He's the CDF.
No, it doesn't matter. In Uganda, in Museveni's Uganda, Museveni is the one who holds power. All these guys are doing, they are all holding rented power. All these guys you see, CDF, general, minister, you see all these people posturing around as ministers, they don't have power. So even for me, even for Muhoozi, I think Muhoozi is, I sympathize with him and his father, because you see, when you, at the point when you become a chief of defense forces, there's a certain posture you are supposed to hold. Society expects you to behave in a certain way. You cannot just go and act recklessly, irresponsibly, and do things, the kinds of things that sometimes he does.
Okay.
I think that I would, and that's why I say I sympathize with him. I think that he's a very high, self-spirited individual who wants to do certain things. But I think his father has cornered him and kept him in a box. So he's been trying to maneuver in a box which is very small.
But he's always telling you, just because of my father, I would have done this. But because of my
but you see,
father,
that's
I
the
won't do
problem.
this.
That's the problem. At 50 years, you can't be referring to your father.
Thank you.
And you know, the bigger problem for us as a country, because Moses, again, is another individual like you and me, without the gun and the position, he wouldn't issue the threats that he's issuing to many people. But bottom line for me, if you think about it in terms of Uganda, you and I and others who love this country, that you don't want to have someone who brazenly and openly violates the constitution of Uganda, and then he is the CDF. So you can
One would
see,
say you've not seen him violate the
Yeah.
constitution. You have
You've
not.
not-
You've not
no,
seen him.
but he has been campaigning. He has been campaigning.
Have
That's
you
against
had
the
him
law.
campaign?
No, he has campaigned. He has a vigilante group called Pirao.
Yeah, but have you had him?
What do you mean you had him? What
As
does
an
it mean?
individual, have you had him
So
say
you are
anything
saying
like that?
you are saying when he goes on Twitter and says I am the next president of Uganda, you think he's not?
You,
that's
as a
not
lawyer,
happening.
is he the one speaking on Twitter? You don't have evidence to confirm that.
So you are saying that's a parody account or what?
It's not what I'm saying,
So
but I'm saying you don't have the evidence, really.
unless the UPDF or his personal aides come and issue statements and say no, this is not Muhoozi, you and I are supposed to expect that this
Okay,
is Muhoozi.
lastly, because of time, only because of time, the alternative government, the people who are ready to take power, When you look into them, how ready
Where
are they?
You have them?
The National Unity Platform. That's the alternative government.
No, that's not called alternative government. You see, I think, let me put it this way. The debate in this country has been so polarized by structuring it between a group called NRM and those who are opposed to it. It's a very bad debate because Uganda's problem cannot be solved by these two groups. Our problems are bigger. They are beyond political. Our problems are constitutional. Our problems are related to values. Our problems are related to leadership. So you can have a failure of leadership both within NRM and outside. Our problem is the lack of national unity. Our problems are the absence of a shared dream of a bigger future. So those problems cannot be solved by NRM and by switching NRM to NUP or to FDC, switching FDC to NRM. No. As I have said time and again,
yes, sir.
As a country, we are at a point where all of us as Ugandans, in our different formations, political, economic, religious, cultural, professional, we are supposed to be seated on a table and say, how do we build a Uganda that works for all of us? That we can avoid this stupid competition. That because someone who says in NRM now I'm in NRM, I have access to state security, I can come and contest with you and beat you. Then the one of opposition says, I'm here, I have to be fighting the other one. I think that's what I've said. Ugandans, we're a strange people. We compete over useless things. We are supposed to be seated on the same table,
Yes, sir.
talking about the future, because I think that the future of this country that we desire as a generation is still ahead of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for facing the nation. It was a privilege having you. Of course, thank you so much, our viewer, for tuning in from the time we started up to now. Every Friday evening, we're always having a conversation with various Ugandans to help make Uganda a better place. We have these conversations really to foster solutions that we believe will make Uganda better for the next generation that is yet to come. My name is Edgar Matthew Karuhanga. This is Digitalk TV. I'll see you again next time, same station. Good evening, Uganda.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, recorder. Did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.